Hi, Robin here. Welcome back to Toadstool Tarot. I recently acquired a deck that I had been wanting for some time, and this is out of the Purgatory box of Nancy Texas Rose, which I've been actually doing the same thing, putting decks that I don't use into a box for rehoming elsewhere. Anyway, this is one that Nancy had. She didn't use anymore, and I'd been wanting it, so I bought it off her. It's a vintage one from 1974, the Tarot Classic. You can see the tuck box is a little beat up around the corners, but that's the way of the world with tuck boxes, which is why I don't care much for tuck boxes. Also, this came with a book, The Tarot Classic by Stuart Kaplan, which I didn't particularly want. I'm not much of a reader, and a lot of tarot books read like textbooks to me. But this one, actually, I've been kind of, about halfway through in a couple of days, and it's been interesting because there's a lot of history on tarot, and also lots of pictures of different cards from different early decks, and some charts, correspondent charts and things. I think the only chapter so far that I didn't get into was the one on Kabbalah, which I thought was a little bit too heavy for me to tackle at this point. But everything else so far has been really interesting. And I'm now gotten up to past the history part and into the one card at a time, RWS, or I should say majors only cards. And then after that, we'll get into the lesser arcana or pip cards, which I'm curious to read about because that's kind of where I'm at these days with Marseille and learning how to read with pip cards. Generally speaking, I tend to just sort of translate them in my head to the visuals from the RWS deck, which probably isn't the way to go. It works for me, but let's see if I can find a, more traditional way of working with Marseille decks. Comes with a little white book that you can see is sort of like dinged up a little bit from the tuck box. Again, that's the problem with tuck boxes and those little flaps. These are the back design of the card, which is not much into plaids, but I actually like this color palette of this plaid. And also, this is a nice size format. This is U.S. Games, and the cardstock is nice. They're smaller than average tarot card size by, I would say, quarter to half an inch shorter and narrower. So that makes it a very comfortable size to handle, hold, shuffle. There are a couple cards in this deck I particularly was drawn to, which made me want the deck, which are the Hanged Man and the Ace of Cups, but you'll see when we get there. The coloring of this deck is really unusual, and that's kind of what I tend to go for with Marseille decks, different versions than the usual primary coloring that's sort of stark. And this one's interesting, although if you look close, it kind of has a look, which I guess is much in keeping with 1974. They look like they've been colored with felt tip markers that I think sort of came in pretty big around the 70s. So it looks like somebody found black and white line drawings or woodcut illustrations or something and took an array of felt tip markers and colored them in, and the palette's interesting, but you can see, if you look close, some of the marker line textures in the color field areas. The illustrations are a little different than what I'm used to. Here's this depiction of the hermit. It's different than ones I've seen. Looks a little younger. And some of the expressions are a little bit different. The colors are kind of refreshing. Here's that hangman I was talking about. I have this in one or two other decks I recently got. Although the names don't come to mind at the moment. Wait a minute. One of them, I think, was the, I want to say the Tarot Jacques Viville, but I'm not sure if that's the deck. One of the decks that has that in it. That's a majors only. Oh, it might be the Gasman. You know, this is a full deck. The Viville is only majors, so they wouldn't have the Ace of Cups, but this one I'm pretty sure has that hangman, but the coloring is different. In fact, I wonder if I can find it for you quickly. Oh, here's the Ace of Cups that I love so much that you'll see later in this deck. And here's the Hanged Man, which is very different coloring than this particular deck. I think I saw the Tarot Classique first, and then when I saw these images, I saw them repeated in the Gasman deck, which made me get that deck. I think you can still get this deck on eBay. It's not that cheap, but it's also not that expensive. It's a little pricey, but manageable. I was lucky to get a copy from Nancy. I'm not sure it's one I'll use that often, but it's nice to have this color variation in my collection. As you already know, probably from some of my other videos, let's see, we're in August, late August 2020, and I've been collecting a lot of Marseille decks, I'd say since June, or maybe May, and I bought 2 or 3 of them last September, and then kind of went out of phase or out of fashion with them and back to RWS and other things, and recently I've been drawn to them again. There's not a whole lot to say about these, just that the color is different. The facial expressions are sweet and friendly. Sometimes you find in the Marseille decks the expressions are a little bit harsh or disgruntled or unnerving. Now here is, I love the cup suit here. This was the cup that really attracted me. It's like this big jello mold of a cup. It's kind of bulbous and bloated and yellow and blue. It's just beautiful. It's like, when I saw this, I thought, oh, I need that deck. And even though these are not quite the same, these multiples, not quite as impressive as that ace, they're still very pretty. So yeah, in this deck, cups aren't usually my favorite suit in decks, but I think they are in this deck. This is my favorite suit. I like both the coloring and the depiction of the cups. And we have the coins. And the number 2 says, Fabrique de Carte à Schaffhaus. I don't know about Schaffhaus. It sounds potentially German rather than French, so I don't know. Here's an M. I don't know what the M is for. Marseille, maybe? So a big thank you to Nancy Texas Rose, and check out her channel. See you all next time.